Unit 3, Part 7 notes, I can solve an absolute value equation. Reminder, absolute value is a number's distance from 0 on the number line. Now, distance means that that number will always be positive. If we're measuring a distance, that distance is positive. So if we think about the absolute value of 5, these two straight lines mean absolute value. So anything in the middle is what we're taking the absolute value of, which would mean 5's distance from 0. So here's 5, 0's here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 jumps, so the absolute value of 5 is positive 5. And then similarly, if we take the absolute value of negative 5 is over here, it's still 5 jumps from 0. It's just in a different direction. So when we take that absolute value, we're just getting rid of that distinction between the direction of the jumps, and we're just taking account the number of jumps from 0. So when we solve an absolute value equation, right now we're saying the absolute value of some number is going to be equal to 7. So what this equation is really asking is, what number is 7 units away from 0? That's what this is really asking, because if we're trying to figure out the absolute value, we want to know the distance. So it's saying we know the distance is 7. So if we started at 0 on our number line and we jumped 7 to the right, where would we end up? Well, we'd end up at positive 7. And then if we started at 0 and we jumped 7 to the left, where would we end up? We'd end up at negative 7. So x could be negative 7 or it could be positive 7, because those two values are the two that are 7 units away from 0. So in this practice and this concept that we're learning, we're always going to have two answers, because there's always going to be two values that meet that absolute value quantity. So in order to solve an absolute value equation, we are always going to set up two cases. So here we have the absolute value of x take away 2 is equal to 5. So again, we're saying what value of x, if we take away 2 from it, will give us an absolute value of 5. So to do that, we're going to set up two cases. I call it the positive case and the negative case. So the positive case is where we take the piece inside the absolute value bars, that x take away 2, and we set it equal to positive 5, because that would be 5 jumps to the right from 0. And then we're going to do the negative case, where we're going to take that piece inside the absolute value bars, x take away 2, but we're going to set it up for the negative case, for that when we jump to the left. So we're always going to have the positive and the negative case. And then we just solve the equation like normal. X take away 2, we undo that minus 2 with a plus 2 on both sides. So we get x equals 5 plus 2 is 7. And then we do the same thing over here. We add 2 to both sides. And then we get x equals, now negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. So please note that while in our last example the numbers were the same, one was positive, one was negative, that's not always the case. So here we have our x value could be 7, or our x value could be negative 3. So two different numbers that both answer this equation correctly. All right, let's try another one. We have the absolute value of 2x is equal to negative 8. Now, this one's a tricky one. So we're not actually going to use this at all, because, what did I say at the beginning? Absolute value is always what? Always positive. So there's no value that we can plug in for x that's going to make this true, because an absolute value of anything we take the absolute value of, can never be negative. So in this case, it's going to be no solution. You won't see this super often, but you will encounter this at some point. So really the key is, if you only have the absolute value on one side of the equal sign, and then it's equal to a negative number instead of a positive number, then that's when you're going to get this no solution. let's try 2 more problems. So for these 2 problems, we're going to do things just one step different. We still are going to have to do our positive case and our negative case. However, before we're able to split it up into those 2 cases, we have to make sure the only thing we have is the absolute value bar on one side. So right now you can see we have this 3 that's outside of the absolute value bar, and that has to be undone first before we can split it into those 2 cases. So since that 3 is outside the absolute value bar, it is indicating multiplication or times. So it's 3 times that value. So to undo times, we have to divide. So we're going to divide the left side by 3, and we're going to divide the right side by 3. When I divide the left side by 3, the 3's cancel, and we're left with the absolute value of 2x plus 6 is equal to, and then we can do 42 divided by 3, which is 14. So now, when we look at this, we can see only the absolute value bars are on the left. Everything else is inside those absolute value bars, and then it's equal to a positive number. Once we have that, then we can split it into our positive and negative case. So our positive case would be the piece inside the absolute value bar, 2x plus 6 is equal to positive 14. The piece on the left would be that piece inside the absolute value bar, equal to negative 14. And then we just solve the equations. We're going to undo plus 6 with a minus 6 on both sides. 6 take away 6 is 0. We're left with 2x equals 14 take away 6 is 8. And then we are going to divide both sides by 2 to get x by itself. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 4 is one of our answers. I would like you to solve this equation here on the left, solve this side, and then you can play the video to see the answer. All right, so you can see the solving steps here for this equation, and you should have gotten negative 10 for your answer. One more example here on the right. We have the absolute value of 4x take away 4. Take away 5 equals 19. So again, we have to do one step because we need the absolute value bars to be the only thing over here. But we've got this minus 5 that's over here on this side as well. So we have to undo minus 5 with a plus 5 on both sides. Negative 5 take away 5 cancels out. We are left with the absolute value of 4x take away 4 is equal to 19 plus 5 is 24. So now that we have this, the absolute value bars, everything else is inside of them, and then equal to a positive number, we can split this into our 2 cases. We can do our positive case and we can do our negative case. So the positive case would be the piece inside the absolute value bars equal to positive 24. And then the piece inside the absolute value bars equal to negative 24. We can solve this equation here by undoing minus 4 with plus 4 on both sides. 24 plus 4 is 28 equal to 4x. Get x all by itself by dividing by 4 on both sides. We get x equals 28 divided by 4 is 7. Again, I would like you to try this problem on the right. Try solving that on your own, and then you can play the video for the answer. All right, so you can see my work here, and the answer that you should have gotten was x equals negative 5. And that is all of the notes for today, so you can go ahead and move into your practice.